What happens when love turns into revenge, and regret becomes the cruelest punishment of all? Watch till the end to uncover the truth that shattered two hearts, rebuilt by pain, forgiveness, and fate itself. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more heart-wrenching emotional stories that touch your soul and leave you breathless till the last second. Heartbreak. Rain poured like punishment from heaven on the night everything changed, when Elena Marquez, a quiet, selfless woman whose only crime was loving the wrong man, was dragged away in handcuffs while the man she loved most, CEO Adrian Knight, stood watching with cold, unreadable eyes. 5 years earlier, she had been his assistant, the one who stayed long after midnight to fix his presentations, the one who remembered his mother's death anniversary when everyone else forgot, the one who loved him silently while he mourned a past that never truly let him go. His first love, Serafina Vale, a model whose death in a mysterious car crash had left Adrian hollow and half alive. Everyone said Elena was lucky to work for the youngest CEO in Knight Enterprises history, but luck had never felt so cruel. Because when the evidence came out, emails, transactions, and a hidden camera showing Elena supposedly accepting money from Serafina's rival, Adrian didn't even look her in the eyes before ordering security to hand her to the police. "You disgust me," he'd said coldly, and those words burned more than any prison bars ever could. For 5 years, she lived among whispers and shadows, clutching her innocence like a dying flame, never understanding how everything she'd done for love had led her to this abyss. Inside those gray walls, she became something else, stronger, colder, untouchable. She learned how betrayal could either break you or sharpen you into something indestructible. And when she finally walked out, the woman who once cried under the moonlight for Adrian was gone. In her place stood someone reborn through pain. Fate, however, was not finished with them. The day Elena was released, Adrian saw her again, but this time, not as his assistant, not as a fallen scapegoat, but as the mysterious investor who had just bought 45% shares of his rival company, Vale Dynamics. The shock was electric. She stood at the press conference in a sharp white suit, her eyes calm, her smile colder than the blade that cut through his heart. The press whispered, old board members murmured, and Adrian could barely breathe. The woman he destroyed was now powerful enough to destroy him back. That night, he sat alone in his office, watching her on the news. Her grace, her confidence, the way she carried pain like a crown, and for the first time in 5 years, guilt clawed at him. Because what he never knew was that the evidence against Elena had been fabricated, part of a bigger game orchestrated by his own vice president, Dylan Cross, the same man who secretly loved Serafina and blamed Adrian for her death. Dylan had used Elena's loyalty, her trust, and her presence around Adrian to frame her as the leak. But when the truth finally surfaced, through an anonymous document leak Adrian received at midnight, it was too late. The report revealed everything: forged transactions, fake CCTV footage, and a confession video from a hacker hired to destroy Elena's reputation. Adrian dropped to his knees in disbelief, his hands shaking as he realized the magnitude of what he'd done. Not only had he destroyed an innocent woman, but he had destroyed the only person who truly loved him without conditions. He tried to reach her. He went to her new company, waited outside her meetings, sent her flowers, messages, apologies, but she never replied. When he finally confronted her at a gala, his voice trembled as he said, "I know the truth now, Elena. I know what they did to you." She looked at him with eyes that once overflowed with love but were now empty like glass. "Truth doesn't fix 5 years of hell, Mr. Knight," she said softly. "It doesn't give me back who I was." That night, Adrian realized the cruelest punishment wasn't losing her, it was knowing she no longer cared. But Adrian was not the kind of man to give up. Beneath his tailored suits and ice-cold demeanor, there was still a boy who had lost too much, who had been too proud to see love when it was right in front of him. He began trying to make amends not through words but actions. He donated anonymously to women's prisons, created a foundation under her name for ex-convict rehabilitation, and fired Dylan publicly when evidence came out. Yet every step he took toward redemption seemed to push her farther away. Elena's world had changed. She was no longer a woman defined by pain but by power. Still, at night, when she walked through her penthouse and saw the rain against her windows, she sometimes remembered his face the day he sentenced her, with pain in his eyes that didn't match his words, and she wondered if part of her still cared. But fate, cruel as it was, twisted their lives again when Elena discovered that Dylan, the real mastermind, hadn't disappeared. He had been hiding in the shadows, manipulating stocks and using her newfound company to cover up a larger crime, money laundering tied to Serafina's death. The revelation shook her to her core. All these years, everyone thought Serafina's death was an accident, but evidence now suggested Adrian wasn't the cause, Dylan was. Serafina had found out about his illegal dealings and threatened to expose him, so he cut her brakes that night. Elena froze as she realized she was now holding the evidence that could not only destroy Dylan but also clear Adrian's name completely. But to do that, she would have to face Adrian again, the man she had sworn never to forgive. When she met him at his penthouse to reveal the truth, the tension between them was unbearable. Adrian stood silently as she dropped a folder on his desk. "This is what really happened," she said, her voice steady. He opened it, and his world shattered once more. "Serafina. She tried to protect me," he whispered, his voice cracking. "And I punished you for her death." Tears filled his eyes for the first time in years. "I destroyed you." Elena turned away, fighting the storm inside her. "You believed what you wanted to believe," she said bitterly. "I stopped needing your apology a long time ago." But when Dylan found out Elena had exposed him, he struck back, literally. One stormy night, as Elena left her office, a black car followed her through the rain. Shots rang out, glass shattered. When Adrian got the call that she'd been rushed to the hospital, everything inside him broke. He arrived breathless, blood-stained, begging the doctors to save her. As she lay unconscious, tubes and machines keeping her alive, he realized love wasn't about being forgiven, it was about fighting for someone even when they hated you. For 2 days, he never left her side. When she finally opened her eyes, his trembling hand reached for hers, afraid she'd pull away, but she didn't. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why are you still here?" Adrian's eyes filled with tears. "Because losing you once was my mistake," he said, voice raw. "Losing you again would be my death." Silence hung between them like fragile glass before she whispered, "You don't get to say that after what you did." He smiled sadly. "I know. But I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." Weeks later, when Dylan was arrested and his crimes broadcasted publicly, the world saw Elena as a hero and Adrian as the man who finally brought justice. But to them, it was more than headlines, it was closure. Still, love wasn't simple. Though they worked together on rebuilding the charity she'd started, their hearts remained divided between what was lost and what could be rebuilt. One night, on the anniversary of her release, Adrian visited her by the sea, the place where she once told him she believed broken things could still be beautiful. "Elena," he said, voice trembling, "I know I don't deserve another chance, but I can't stop loving you." She looked at him for a long time, her eyes glistening with both pain and tenderness. "Love," she whispered, "you killed that love when you sent me to prison. What you're holding now is just the ghost of it." He took a step closer. "Then let me bring it back to life." She turned away, tears falling silently, because part of her wanted to believe him, but the scars were too deep. She walked away, leaving him standing in the rain just like the night he destroyed her life. Months passed, and Adrian stopped chasing her. Instead, he dedicated himself to the foundation, to doing good, to becoming the man she could someday forgive. One winter morning, Elena visited the center quietly. She watched him teaching young ex-convicts about business, his smile soft, his hands covered in paint from helping rebuild an orphanage. And for the first time, she saw the man she once loved, not the CEO who broke her, but the man who was trying to heal others because he couldn't heal himself. That night, she left a single white lily on his desk with a note. "Some wounds never heal, but some souls still deserve peace." He found it hours later, and though it wasn't forgiveness, it was enough, it was hope. Years later, when fate crossed their paths once more at a global charity summit, their eyes met across the crowd. No words, no anger, no past, just two hearts that had walked through hell and found meaning in the ashes. She smiled faintly, and he bowed his head slightly, as if saying thank you, for surviving, for teaching him what love truly meant. And maybe, just maybe, that was their miracle, not in falling in love again, but in finding forgiveness in a world that had once taken everything from them.